Then all the unrest started. And the investment committee went back to our sponsor and called them and said, hey, you know that thing you brought by that we told you wasn't the right time for? You know, the thing with the black people?
Now's the right time.
Wow.
All right, Brian Brackeen, thank you for joining Lessons Via Leaders, brother. I appreciate you being here.
Good to be here as well. I've been waiting, man. I've been waiting for my invitation. No, dude.
Awesome. So you're GP at Lightship Capital. Real quick, can you just give a background on Lightship Capital and the work you guys do there?
Absolutely. So at Lightship, we are a venture fund focused on women and minorities in tech. We also focus on parts of the country that are underrepresented in venture capital. So that's the Midwest and the South. If you look at how companies are built under the coast, and when I say coast, I mean Boston, New York, LA, San Francisco, it takes a lot more capital for a lower exit in those places because of cost, right? What you see in the Midwest and South is it's about 5 to 1. So for every dollar you put on the map, you put $1 in the Midwest or $1 in the South, you get about a 5x return on that dollar. If you put that same dollar in the coast, it's around 3.5. So it's by default, it's just a cheaper place to have bigger exits because after you get big, it's all normalized. So after you're crushing it, after you get $100 million revenue or whatever, it doesn't matter if you're in Albuquerque or if you're in New York, like you're going to get bought, like no matter what. So how do we help people in these other places get the capital they deserve?
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. So just to kind of get into the things, I mean, it's crazy times right now, as you know. I know there's a lot of tension in the world right now, and I think everybody's just trying to figure out like the best role they can play and how we can all move forward, not just as a country, but just as a species, you know, as a human race. You and I are in the tech entrepreneur startup space together. So I want to focus the conversation a bit there and see what actionable steps we can do in that community. But I wanted to check in with you first and just see how you're personally doing through all of this. Would love to get your personal thoughts and perspective on all the recent events.
I think you might hear from a lot of your friends that are just living the same life every day, right? Like some part of you is just numb to some things. Like, in fact, I was talking to Yuha the other day. Great man, owns Wincode, for those who don't know.
Love you.
Another Miami staple, right? Yep. Him and his wife are literally two of the best humans anybody's ever met, right?
Agreed.
So I was talking to him about this, and he reached out, and I don't think he would mind me saying, like, and I was really touched by him asking about me. And this came up. I'm going to ask you the same questions. So, how many times in your life have you had a gun pulled on you by a police officer? Zero, right? And think about me and you, right? I think we're kind of similar upbringings. We probably have, throughout our different stages of our career, made kind of the same general amount of money. We're almost the same height. I could probably wear your same clothes, right? You know, we're similar ages as well.
Yep.
So, and we live in the same city. so why would your answer be 0 and my answer be 2? Right?
Right.
And it shouldn't be. We all know it shouldn't be. The answer should be 0, right?
Absolutely.
How many times have you got pulled over and the cop was so angry that they were like, spit was flying out of their mouth, they maybe slammed your car door or anything like that?
0. My
answer is 4. Right? Now, is there anything about my personality that would tell you that a cop would need to be that angry at me at a pullover?
No, absolutely not.
So when the answer is 0, which it should be, and I just want to also say for the crowd, don't be mad. Don't be mad because his answer is 0. Don't be mad at him. You know what I'm saying? Right? Be mad at the person that's yelling or pulling a gun on me, right? It's the difference between, like, that's why Lightship is so important.
Right.
But I say that to say, and I'm sorry, I'm literally in an airport flying to the next city, and I intentionally for your crowd, I'm in a kids' playland, like Shark Tank style.
I love it.
So I thought it would be interesting.
And knowing you, you always were living at airports, so I'm not surprised whatsoever, brother.
So I guess if I know that's like part of my life, every single time I get in a car, right, I feel like I have a single digit, but still some percentage chance of having an altercation, and then some percentage of that altercation's chance of losing my life. Just to go to like, so do I really want to go to the store, right? Do I really have to go to whatever? And so the weight of that every single day. Like
these are things that run through your mind subconsciously on almost every decision you're making.
Every decision is in public. Yep. There are things that I do, and I'm a person, as you know, but for the crowd, like no record, never had any incident ever, and yet I will never put my hands in my pocket in a retail establishment, ever, under any circumstances.
Wow.
Because I don't want to be seen as like stealing something.
Crazy.
Right? It's insane. There's nothing in the store I can't buy. I mean, I'm not saying that to be, I'm just saying. Like, it is what it is. Right? There's literally nothing in a Target I can't afford, period. Right? 10 of them. But I still don't want to put my hand in my pocket in Target. Right? So, to get back to your question, no, I don't feel like you're so used to it. Like, it's the way that you live your life. It doesn't bother me. But lately, it just feels a little heavier than normal. And it feels like the stakes are a little higher than normal. And you hate to see what everyone else is going through. You also have some survivor's guilt sometimes too, right? So, yeah, it's been tough. But I think that we're also designed genetically, like you look at the people who actually made it to America, of the slave trade, the ones that actually lived, like they're the ones that were the toughest, right? And so you have to kind of carry that with you and rely on that to get you through times like this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for sharing those stories. It's powerful to hear. I think, a lot of us went into 2020, right? It was like late 2019, and we're like, okay, 2020, that sounds like a good year, right? The year of 2020 vision, right? Like everything's going to be super clear. And then all of this shit just started happening one after the other. It's been absolutely a crazy year, full of things. You had the tragic death of Kobe Bryant starting the year, which was terrible, and the pandemic, and now everything that's happening with George Floyd and now the protests and all that stuff. And you're thinking, and a lot of people are like, fuck 2020. Like, this is not the year that I was looking forward to. But, I think I saw a post somewhere that's like, maybe this is the year that we all start seeing clearer, right? Maybe it took all of this stuff to get us to finally wake the fuck up and actually say, here are the things we need to be grateful for, and like stuff in the pandemic where we're now spending time with our families and focusing on the things that really matter. And now with all the protests, that's happening, focusing on the change that really needs to happen, right? So maybe 2020 can be that year where we all finally open up our eyes and see the things that we need to see. And I think what's been happening over the past few weeks is a great catalyst for change. And hopefully this moment can be looked on as like, this is where things turn the corner. Do you feel that it's like that? Do you feel like this is the moment that the conversations are starting to happen and that people are going to change their ways? Do you feel like this could be a powerful catalyst?
I do. I'm an optimistic person by nature. No entrepreneur could be successful if they're not, right?
Right.
At almost every major negative event or period in American history, the next section was a period of great growth.
Right.
And I mean, almost without exception. Right. And so the key is to make this one another period of great growth. And I'm actually starting to see that in myself, in my own life, in my own work. There was a fund, and for those that don't follow the venture capital thing, investors have investors, right? Like we get our money from other people, and then we invest that money into great startups.
Yeah. You have your LPs.
Yep, limited partners, and I'm on the road pitching people, just like startups are pitching people.
Sure.
So we had a really large, Fortune 5 company that wanted to invest. They had a new fund for these kinds of things, and they went to investment committee a few weeks ago, and the investment committee said, actually, I like this, but there's a few other things we want to do first.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring it back to us. We'll get it, right?
Yep.
Then all the unrest started, and the investment committee went back to our sponsor and called them and said, hey, that thing you brought by that we told you wasn't the right time for, the thing with the black people?
Now's the right time.
Wow. And it's, it's a shame that you have to wait for this to happen to get the vote. But I appreciate two things. One, they didn't say no the first time.
Right.
Because they did see the need. And two, they rectified that. Instead of just standing on their laurels, they went out of process and said, let's just hold it in kind of an emergency meeting. Let's just vote on that one again.
Yep. And
let's deploy that capital. And those folks came, they got their vote, they came back, we're in, sent us the docs, that kind of thing. So I'm encouraged by stories like that.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it feels, again, you take the social temperature of what's going on right now. This type of unrest has, unfortunately, police have been killing African Americans now for decades unjustifiably. Police brutality is not a new thing, but this feels like kind of like this cataclysmic moment where everybody's just like, what, enough is enough. This feels different this time. There's obviously a combination of things that make it feel this way, but this really does feel like a turning point for change, because it seems like, especially I'm seeing a lot of white entrepreneurs and also a lot of venture capitalists in our industry wanting to have the uncomfortable conversations that they've been avoiding for so long, right? And I think that's the first step. Would you agree?
I would. It never seems like the right time.
Right.
And it's hard for us to kind of collectively realize when it's the right time.
Yep.
But I think this experience has made us all believe, like, forget right time. Like,
right.
It's like, it's now, right? Yes. Like, you're either going to do something about it in whatever capacity you live, right?
Yep.
Or not. And even this conversation, like, it's an important time.
Absolutely.
And here we are having it.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you. And again, thank you for being here to talk about it. So I do want to talk about racism as it exists, particularly in the tech, startup, and entrepreneur community. We see a lot of activism lately happening on tech Twitter, companies, VCs, folks of high stature in our industry being very vocal right now, speaking out against racism, police brutality. But I want to talk about where people can actually go to actually take action and really start making a difference. You wrote a blog post recently, which was amazing, and I'll put it in the description so everybody can check it out. And it's titled, "Some of my fellow venture capitalists are racist. Here is how you fix it." And in it, you state, and I quote, "I'm struck by the lack of action by venture funds to take more diverse investments. This problem has been talked about for a decade with little progress. One reason is simple. Some of my fellow venture capitalists are racist. It's an uncomfortable truth, but one for some reason we refuse to build process around. It's all around us like a virus, yet we won't protect ourselves or our businesses from it." So I want you to just kind of talk about that. These are important words for a lot of people to hear and to read. Talk about racism in the venture capital world. A lot of it, as you mentioned in your article, is systemic because of the way venture capitalists vote on deals. So can we talk a little bit about that and bring some of that to light?
Yeah, and it goes to a number of problems that are layered. But again, how do we protect ourselves from these problems? So most venture funds require unanimous votes for investment. It's a general industry practice. No one could tell you why. No one could tell you when that started. No one could tell you like the reason, other than the fact that it kind of feels good or sounds good from a bravado perspective. But if all things were equal, if all founders were equal, then it actually wouldn't necessarily matter.
Right.
Right. But there's this virus that some people have, this disease some people have, is racism, right? And so if you have, let's just say the number I used in the piece, a large VC could have, I mean, it could have 20, but let's just say on average, maybe 8, 10, 12 people that had to vote on a deal, right? And it's kicked around the committee and whatnot. Now, one of those 12 could be like a card-carrying racist, right? And maybe in your daily work, because there are so few people that are even pitching of color in San Francisco, maybe you wouldn't even notice it, right? Maybe you sat next to somebody for years and they didn't talk about it. But we know that there are people that are racist, right? We know that exists.
Right.
We know people have worn Klan robes before. Like, someone is in those pictures, right? And so if we know that it exists, no matter how large or small we think it is, we should be protecting the founders that didn't pitch us. And we should also be protecting our investors, our LPs, from that person's biases, right? And so how do we protect them? By not allowing unanimous votes, right? By saying, okay, everybody at our fund is amazing. All 12 of them are rock stars. So if 11 out of the 12 think that Will's company is amazing, it's amazing.
Right.
It doesn't need to be 12 out of 12.
Right.
Right? That's still 11 industry experts in your space say you're amazing.
Yeah.
It's not lowering the bar. That's someone who gets 92% of a vote and versus someone who gets 100, you're still getting the same grade, right?
Absolutely. You still get an A.
You still get an A, right? And we could go into a whole variety of reasons why this is a problem that needs to be solved in other areas, like in education, right?
Of course.
If your kids, thank God through your hard work and your wife's amazing, like they have like a great life, right? So every morning you're sitting in the school with food, they're fed,
yeah.
Right? And probably thoughtfully and nutritiously, like you're a great dad. I know I'm not saying this for the people, like I know,
Thank you, brother.
You care a lot about them. And so some people are great parents, but they don't have any money and they've got to skip a meal, right? And they feed their kids twice a day and not 3 times a day, not because they don't want to.
Right.
And so when your kids take a test and they take the same test and their stomach's grumbling and they get one wrong, right?
Yep.
Not because they're not smart, but because they can't focus.
Right.
Right. We still give that kid an A, right? And your kid an A. That's fair. Going back to this situation, unanimous votes don't allow for some external situation. They don't allow space for an external situation to impact the vote. And so I make a point in the piece, I think it's critical that we remove the unanimous vote requirement from venture capital.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that helps in a number of areas. And first and foremost, it eliminates any bias that any particular venture capitalist would have. That could be racial bias, that could be gender bias, that could be bias against religion, or bias against your industry at the same time, right? There could be any number of things where if you have the majority votes of the GPs, that should just be a signal to the one person that's not agreeing, you know what, I trust the rest of the GPs to make the right decision. I think in general that is a good thing, and one person shouldn't be able to dictate whether or not your company gets funded, because that person could have just woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day, or like you said, the person could be racist, it could be against female entrepreneurs or whatever the case may be, could hate Jews. You want to eliminate as much of that out of the equation as possible. So I love that concept. And is that typically how all venture capitalists work? It's known that all GPs have to agree to a deal?
It is generally how it works. There are funds that do single GP selection.
Yep.
Or like Google Ventures is famous for, there's a sponsor and then there's a CEO of that division.
Gotcha.
And it's just a 2-person decision. If he can convince him, sadly they're always hims, but if he or she can convince him, then you get a vote. And you'll see the diversity in those funds is better. Um, the diversity in angel groups
For sure.
it tends to be better because it's lots and lots of individual decision makers versus the group mentality. So we know that how the vote is structured
Yep.
plays a direct role in diversity.
I love that. And what you're suggesting in the piece is you've essentially open sourced the pledge here, right? Called the underrepresented pledge. And I can read it here for our listeners. We at firm name promise to remove the unanimous vote provision from our fund management policies as well as any agreements with our limited partners. We are doing this to promote better diversity in our investments. We believe that this best serves our team, our investors, our portfolio CEOs, and society. We encourage other firms to do the same. So you're essentially kind of open sourcing this pledge that any firm can now adopt, put it on their website, put it into their guidebook on how they make investments. And I love it. I applaud you for stepping up to the plate and writing something like this and taking a stand that honestly every single venture capital fund should adopt.
Yeah, we're entrepreneurs, man. We like to solve problems, right?
Yeah.
We could bellyache and we could complain and all we do. Me and you have in bars.
Yep.
But ultimately, we want to solve the thing that we're complaining about, right? Which is why we did what we did. So, yeah, it's just my way of coping, right? Just to try to put something out there, and hopefully it was very well circulated. And let's see if it gets adopted.
I love it. Can we talk a little bit? I saw, and Andreessen Horowitz made an announcement that they were doing a fund for minority entrepreneurs with $2.2 million, which is basically like one pre-seed round. Like, what was that? Like, can we talk a little about that? Is there any explanation that they've made since? Because I saw that and I was just like dumbfounded. This is a $2 billion. How much do they have under management? Like
multiple billions.
Right, exactly.
Multiple billions. So it's a donor advised fund, which is they've since said like, hey guys, like what we were trying to do is put our money in, have other people put their money in, we can deploy it faster. The reason it's getting just rolled is and they have a decent record in diversity.
Sure, absolutely.
They're like saying, I can't put investor money in this space. I've got to see if I can get charity, right? That's the message that came across. It doesn't matter if that was what they meant to come across. It doesn't matter if that wasn't the goal.
Yeah.
That is how literally 95% of people took that. And when you see like a multi-billion-dollar firm putting $2 million aside, I mean, what's management fee on those billions? You know, I guess
crazy.
It could be done better, and I'll say so. That's one issue. Also, SoftBank did $100 million fund, which I think is better because it's investor money. And SoftBank, there's a lot of folks in Miami that are affiliated with it. Just it's like a joke. It's like a joke in the Black community. Like, come on, bro, just call.
Yeah.
Just call. Like, just call. Just call. Like they have a couple of people. Paul Judge. It's on one other person. Oh, the woman CEO of an IKEA-owned brand, but they're advisors. They're not even in the investor community.
Right.
And why are we calling people like Atlanta stuff? We're right here, like I'm right here in Miami. Like, just take that money, put it into 4 or 5, put $20 million to 5 Black-owned venture capital funds.
Right.
And allow them and their process. Like our vote process is designed for minorities to be successful. Right.
Yeah.
Start there.
Just become LPs in those funds. You make impact that way.
Yeah.
Right?
And then when that fund is more successful, they could also raise fund 2 and be bigger.
Yep.
Help more people. Right. After this fund's depleted, then what? Like, I just thought that I would have been able to convince them to doing something different in a 20-minute phone call. And I think what happens is they start Googling and just try to find somebody, like, oh, we'll just get Paul Judge from Atlanta and he can tell us what to do. Like,
right.
Come on. just call.
Yeah, just call. Just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
What are some actionable steps? Again, we get a lot of talking right now. We see a lot of tweeting happening. We see a lot of people that are like, it's time for change. And I feel like a lot of people do mean it out of the goodness of their heart. They really want to make impact. They want to make change. A lot of people are caught up in their own bubbles, right? In their own, communities and neighborhoods and social circles. And for the folks that are listening, where are good places to start? What are some good places good things to do and actionable steps that really people can take to make a true difference, right? People that have influence, that really want to make an impact, reaching out to African-American entrepreneurs, make investments, bring them into some of the things that they're doing. How do you start? How do you go about it?
So, one, allyship is important.
Right.
Right. And you have to trust that you can have a tough conversation with your friends and that you will be rewarded for that conversation. Right. I believe in the bottom of my heart, not on this topic, on any topic. If I was to call you on any topic in the middle of the night, you'd answer the phone and you would give me good counsel, period.
Yep.
And so rely on those people that you can trust, and I think that just builds more bridges, and that's important. Two, what not to do. Don't say, oh, you know what? I'm going to mentor a bunch of Black startups and teach them the basics. Bro, they know the basics.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't assume that they're at step one. Right. Don't assume that they're
it's not charity work,
No, it's not charity work. They're crushing it. Our fund thesis, we don't even invest. Our latest 4 investments, 3 out of the 4 are somewhere between 1.5 and $3 million in revenue. Right? These are not I'm trying to figure it out. Hell, they had better businesses than I had at that stage. I can tell you that. So don't assume it's the basics. Please don't. And then next is, so you come into it with that lens that they're experts. You're trying to get them a little bit of leg up. That's going to be things like not just an introduction to an investor. That's not enough. That was enough last year, right? This year, it's one of my first investors, Juan Pablo.
Yep.
One of my favorite people in the world, right? Yours too. One of your first investors too.
JPC,
right? Yeah. JPC. It's Juan, this company, I love it. It's Black led. Not even for you, but for me. Unless it's absolutely unacceptable, can you please write them a check? Unless it's completely out of your wheelhouse or you're not writing checks at all, give this one really strong consideration for me. And if it doesn't go well, it's on me. I'll make it up to you, right? But we need this. We need a few more wins out here. That's the call that we need, right? Throughout my career, I've had the other call. Oh yeah, here's Bob. Good luck. Nothing. Tell Bob how much you love me.
Right.
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 Tell Bob how much it matters.
On Twitter, somebody coined the phrase "hire or wire." That's really what you need to do at the end of the day, right?
That's it. Send the money, hire a professional wherever you are. Even if you're at a big corporation, ask your corporation, do we have a fund of funds? Yes or no? If we do, what are we investing in? Do we have a venture capital arm? Yes, we do. What are we investing in? Right? If you're in a pension fund, right? This is what kills me. Talk about Andreessen, and again, they're not terrible, but you talk about some of the bigger VCs on the West Coast, pension fund money. It's all pension fund money, right? Who's in pension funds? Teachers, right? Police officers, firemen, right? Generally, teachers in a place like Philadelphia are generally women and minorities, right? So they send hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars to venture capitalists of the people's money, of some working teacher in Philly, right? Her retirement to these guys in the West Coast of New York. And they invested in everyone but people who look like her. It's the greatest rob of all time.
It's crazy.
And then want to lecture her about she doesn't know what she trust me.
Crazy. Wow. It is crazy when you think about it. You're right. It's like kind of just like the greatest rob that nobody talks about. Just sloshing money around, and it's not
Totally.
being allocated in the proper spaces. So I think those are great tips. Are This is up to you. Would you like to call light to anything that you've personally experienced? Because I think it's important again that we call some of these things out. Experience that you've had as an entrepreneur or as an investor that was just like completely 100% racist that needs to be called out or shined a light on.
A good 60% racist, 70% racist.
A
So,
lot of those,
I
huh?
mean, you look at, yeah, yeah. I mean, rarely will you get a 100% story, just to like divert a little bit,
Right.
because you won't put yourself in a situation to be around somebody like that's that.
Right, exactly. You wouldn't even be talking to
Yeah,
them in the first place.
you'd never be doing business with them in the first place. They're never going to talk to you anyway.
Yeah.
So what happens is there's a spectrum, right? There's good people like yourself, right? Then there's good people who won't say anything. That's
Mhm.
another level down,
Yep.
right? Like I guess it's never happened to us, but I feel very firm. Like if somebody was like using racial slurs and things, well, first of all, you're a minority as well. So let's just start with that, right? So you're not having it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because you're gonna be talking about you next, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I think you're a stand-up guy. You would actually like say something. Some
Yeah,
people
I've
would be
dealt with
very,
anti-Semitism in venture capitalists as well. You know, it exists, and I don't think it's to the same level at all that African American entrepreneurs have to deal with. But there is a lot of prejudice out there, and so I'm used to some levels of prejudice and anti-Semitism. You know,
yeah. And people just make like sly, offhanded comments. They think it's okay
right, right,
about religion and about like
sure.
I'm not even gonna get into it, but it's just
Yeah, well,
I
I've
yeah,
heard that. Well, maybe if we invest in him, he won't spend the money because he's Jewish, and Jewish people are usually pretty stingy. You know, like I've
yeah.
heard stuff like that. You
What the
know,
fuck is that? Yeah.
okay. Ridiculous comments.
So
Obviously, I didn't even do business with that investor, so it's
yeah, I've had yeah. And we have geographic bias we deal with as well, being in
yep,
Miami. Like,
no,
oh,
for
all you
sure.
guys do is lay on the beach all the day. Like, so
Yep,
we're all going through certain things. It's just that some of the black things are deadly. But having said that, so you have like the good person who's going to fight and doesn't want to hear anything. You have the kind of person who's uncomfortable but doesn't speak up, right? Then you have like some more advanced, like actual racists, and ultimately like the kind of Klansman is at the end, who probably isn't in our business anyway, right? So the for the racist individual, I think of my situation at Kairos, and we're talking about this on Twitter a little bit. Like people see the big startup, they see me on the cover of this magazine, that magazine, they see a company that's kind of in the spotlight, right? And they desire this for themselves. There's that group. There's also another group of people, investors that have a very small stake and want a larger stake. So what do? You could actually, this is a very like this could happen to anybody, right? If I wanted to take over Live Ninja because I know it's about to be sold and Will's a stand-up guy, right? So he's going to be in my way, right? And I own some important rights, but not enough for me to get as rich as I like. And the company is just getting more and more and more viable. Live Ninja's going through the roof, right? Um, sorry, just make sure my bag belongs to me and it wasn't like a bomb. Sorry. So what do I do? Um, I've got to paint Will to be like a monster, like it's thieving or like just a bad guy. He's he's doing blow up hookers' stomachs in Vegas, like whatever. Like, but I'm making all these examples because Will's none of these things. But I just want to.
I thought that trip was private, Brian, and here you are on the podcast. No, I'm joking.
We're all family here
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
show. So I've got to kind of create a narrative to one scare the people who are just super pro Will away,
Right.
and then kind of create a situation where I can take over, do a down round, get as much ownership as I can, and then of course the underlying company is still worth a lot of money, so I'll just ride it all the way back up, right? Little temporary dip, ride it back up. The only person stopping me from that success is Will, right? Now, lucky for me, Will is black. And so if I say he's a bad guy, if I say he's stealing, if I say he's whatever, right? I know at least the dog whistle racists will believe it, at the least, right? I know that people would be more likely who like me, who like Will, would still be more likely to believe it, maybe just from bias, right? And then I can hopefully get enough votes to get him out of there. In the end, it didn't work. We can talk about that a whole other time, but that is the kind of thing and the kind of capitalism and the kind of venture capital that I refuse to be a part of. And I knew that I always wanted to be an investor before this, but I knew that I was going to become the kind of investor that was going to be on boards and was going to be in these investor meetings and say, Will's my guy, ride or die, show me the pictures of Will doing well. If he did it,
yeah,
okay, right? But if not, if you're just trying to do this, so you wait, so first you don't like him, but you would do it down round two? Like, why are those two things? Like, why are those things together, right? Let's just get rid of Will, keep everything the way it is, right? So, yeah, I would caution any entrepreneur working with the kinds of investors that would do that kind of behavior. And we know who they are. Tweet at me. Happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah, Brian's always open on Twitter, very active, at Brian Brackeen if you want to hit him up. Also a great follow, so please follow him there. What is a good way for Black entrepreneurs to find the right partners? As far as because again, like you said, a lot of venture capitalists are racist. Not the fact that they're outspoken racist, but there are underlying things and systemic things within venture capital that prevents African-American entrepreneurs from access to capital. What are some of the good ways that African-American entrepreneurs can do references to make sure, like you said, they're aligning with the right investor, and not just investors that are just trying to check off a box to say, hey, we have a Black entrepreneur in our portfolio, right? What's a good way to kind of cut through the bullshit and find those true, really good partners?
I think time is a great teller, right? So I was talking just today, Miami Angels, they've been around in different forms. They had another name before, but they've been around for years. AGP, exactly, which I think that's the entity that invested in both of us.
Yeah, exactly. You and I both have investors from AGP. Yep.
Yeah. So Miami Angels has been making investments for probably almost a decade. And there's Black people in the early investments. And there's Black people in the middle investments. And there's Black people in the recent investments.
Right.
Right. And it's not only just Black. There's women in all those groups.
Absolutely.
There's straight, gay. It's a pretty diverse.
AGP had diversity built in from the get-go. It was just baked into the DNA of just that organization.
Yeah, and I'll say also the investors in AGP are also diverse.
Yep.
Right? And you look at some of the other groups in town, New World Angels, for instance, no diversity. How they treated the few people that they invested in of color, how they treat them. Not great. What do their deals look like? Right? What do their ownership look like in those companies? What do the follow-on look like? Do they have unstandard terms? I know they do. So let that be the guide, right? And don't take term sheets from these people because it's just not worth it.
Right. It's definitely a negative sign if the first investment that they've made in an African-American entrepreneur has been in the last few weeks just because of the uproar and they want to check off a box, right? It's not.
Totally.
And look, I think we should also state that shouldn't discourage folks from making more investments into African-American entrepreneurs. We want to see that happen and we want to see that, tenfold. But at the same time, make sure that the people that you're talking to really have your back throughout the journey, not just, they're check a box, like you said, because you want these people to be your allies for 5 to 7 years, because that's the average, lifespan of a company, for a startup. Yeah. You need, long-term partners.
There are Latino brothers and sisters in the AGP portfolio.
Yep.
Every year, they've been in business. There's women in probably almost every year, if not every year, that they've been doing it, right?
Yep.
Different minorities, international. So if you see a fund that has been around for 20 years, had a 6-month period of black people around this racial incident, and then went white male only Christian after that,
right?
Yeah,
that's a negative sign. I mean, again, I think in general, this is a problem and a conversation that a lot of people have been avoiding for a long time. And I think this is great that we're having these conversations and figuring out ways that we could actively solve it. I think finding partners like you that people can go to, obviously a lot of venture capital firms that are starting to be popping up everywhere that are investing in minority entrepreneurs are great. I think we need more resources for that. I would love to hear, again, before we leave, I'd like to hear your opinion on where folks can go. Are there resources that people can go to that, I think I see it all over Twitter. People are sharing things, but do you know specifically things that we can list out where, African-American entrepreneurs can go to find venture capital and also just to find just more opportunity within the startup and tech scene?
Yeah, I'll give macro
Yep.
and down to micro, like 3 levels. Yep. Top level,
yep,
just for social justice and economic justice.
Mm-hmm.
The NAACP LDF, it's like all one thing. It's the Legal Defense Fund of the NAACP. It's a separate organization started by Thurgood Marshall before he went to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
Run by an amazing woman named Sherilyn Ifill now. They bring suits all over the country. They're fighting for economic and social justice and doing a hell of a job. They're the ones that brought suit in Florida around voting rights for formerly incarcerated people, and won. So that's macro, right? Coming down a level, something called The Plug or TP Insights. This is news on Black innovation ecosystems, on Black investors, Black startups, where you can find them, where you can invest in. It's like a Brookings for this space, led by a woman named Sherelle Dorsey, brilliant, part-time Miamian, really, really strong firm. TP Insights, we're called The Plug. And then at the littlest level, us, yep. Come read our blog,
Lightship.
Follow me on Twitter. Yeah, lightship.capital.
Yep.
Anyone can apply. We don't require a warm intro. So come to the site. There's an apply for funding button, very straightforward. And we're a $20 million venture fund. Nothing to announce here yet, but we're going to greatly oversubscribe. And so we're focused on getting capital into these companies. Our first check's about $250,000, and we'll invest on average around $800,000, $1 million over the life of a company. Though for 4 or 5 big winners, we'll invest about $3 million over the life of a company. So
awesome.
Venture capital done at the same level as other firms, but with folks that have you at heart and understand your story. And it's all minorities. It's also it's LGBT. It's veteran status, immigrants. I often say to my LP meetings, they ask, well, are you missing out on some of the best deals? The CEOs of Microsoft, Google, and Apple, for instance, all would be in thesis for every single one of them. So there's no drop off. If your public portfolio includes those companies, your private portfolio can include our companies.
Love that.
So yeah, that's who we are. That's what we're doing. Thanks for having me on the show.
Amazing. Do you have like 5 more minutes so we could wrap up a couple things? So I'd like to just ask a couple. So again, I know you got to go. You're at the airport. You got to get through security. But real quick, if we could leave a message with venture capitalists that are listening and watching. Again, we have the underrepresented pledge that you've open sourced. But can you share a message with other VC firms, fellow venture capitalists, and if they're listening? Again, this is a time for awakening, for great change. What message would you like to give to those venture capitalists?
Well, like you said, take the pledge, take it seriously. That's certainly number one. Number two, co-invest with firms like us. Number three, send your limited partners to Black-owned venture capital funds with that same call I talked about. Hey, we care a lot about this. This is an introduction. This is a request, right? This is not an introduction. This is a request. Invest in funds that are run by Black fund managers.
I think that'd be a great start. That'd be awesome. And for entrepreneurs, for Black entrepreneurs that are struggling right now, that feel like they're not getting, you know, equal opportunity, what would you tell to them? You know, just some words on like places they can go and how to kind of navigate through some of these issues.
Definitely the three things I listed for sure. Twitter's on fire right now. That's a good spot.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
I mean, it's plenty of content there.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
and a lot of resources being shared on Twitter with a lot of funds that are right now looking for African American entrepreneurs to invest in that are doing great things. So
no better place.
Yep, we'll put all that stuff in the description. We'll obviously plug Lightship a ton in the description. If you want to reach out to Brian, I'll put all his info down. Email's the best way, and Twitter's the best way to get in touch with you.
For your time.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Brian. Really appreciate you being on the show, brother.